In this exercise, we're going to demonstrate how to work with the border image property introduced in CSS3. Since it is CSS3, authors should view it as an experimental feature for now. Now I made just a very simple border frame for this experiment, but yours can be as fancy as you like. And let's take a look at the finished product before we get into the code. So you can see as I resize my window, or no matter what the user's screen size is, the border can be any width or height and still maintain its nice appearance. Because what actually happens is the image gets sliced up into 9 parts. And that's what allows it to be any size or scale. And just so you can see it before we begin, this is my frame.png image sitting on my desktop. And here's a preview of it. This is the actual size. Okay, our example HTML file just has 2 ordinarily styled divs, and I gave them a red outline. It's a red dashed outline. That way we can see the outline of the divs as we're working. So let's see what that renders. Now each one I just put a style inline attribute to give them a height, but in a real world situation the content within them would determine their height. So this really doesn't even have to be there. And before we apply the border image, I want to take you into my graphics editing software and show you something real quick. So I'm going to zoom in on the image that is my frame, and let me just pull out a shape, and I'm going to draw the shape in at the corner, and I want to grab the whole corner of my design of my frame. So you can see I have a width of 28 and a height of 28. So if I bring the opacity down, you can see that the number that I'm going to have to target for the width of my frame is 28 pixels, or 28. Alright, so what's going to happen when we apply the code is this image is going to get sliced up into 9 sections. Now this is one section, this is going to be another section. Each corner is a section. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this image is sliced up into 9 sections when we apply the code that we're about to apply. So let me remove these and get back to the normal image. Now to make the magic happen for our containers, let's just go into our style rule, and we're going to set a border of 28 pixels. Remember that number 28? We're going to set that as the border width. And under that, let's apply the border image property. Now the border image property is shorthand that authors can use to specify all of these properties all at once in a single line. So in one single declaration, you can assign the values for all of these properties. And we'll take a look at those properties in just a moment. Alright, let's get rid of this and let's see what we have now. Okay, so now you can see exactly what's going on. Alright, now let's take this border down to maybe 5 pixels. Refresh. You see what's happening? It's scaling. It's a border 15 pixels. And it won't be its actual size until I get up to 28. Because that is the actual width of the border frame. Or the frame border. So when I go to 28, it's the actual size of my graphics. Now what if I reduce this number down to 15? Down to 7. So you see what's happening? So if I go up, instead of 28, let's go 36. It should all be smaller. Alright, let's get that back on 28. Now we can remove our outline, but you might want to keep the outline in place while you're experimenting. Now we'll quickly show you how to change this back to the longhand version of the properties. That way, if you ever want to fine-tune anything in specific by itself. So first we have the border image source property, and that's just the URL. So we can get rid of these 2 parameters because this only accepts the one parameter or the one value. Now we'll add the border image slice and border image repeat. There's also a border image width property and a border image outset property. I'll show you all the properties at the end of the video, and I'll lead you to pages where they're all referenced. So let's see what we get. And we should get the same exact rendering. And we do. So this is you can call it the longhand approach to the shorthand version that you saw just a moment ago. But shorthand is so much easier. Now let's go under the border image repeat and let's put in the border image width property. I'm going to set that to 28 and then remove the border property that I had up top. Let's see what we get. So you can see we get a similar rendering, but our content, we'll have to add more padding and stuff like that in order for our content to be within the little frame. So that's why I just chose to have the border property as well. Let's see what we get if we have the border and border image width. Now let's change this to something like 10 and see how that alters the appearance of everything. Alright, let's leave it back on 28. Now we're going to take a look at border, and this is the last border image property, border image outset. So you can specify a number here or a pixel length. So I'm just going to put the 28 pixels. Now it's going to move the whole thing outside of the element. It's going to set the frame outside of the element. So let's refresh. So you see how the frame has moved outside. It's outset now. So let's change that number just to maybe 5. And you'll see that the outline is now inside of that frame. And it'll keep being pushed outside the amount that you set it here. And this can also be a number, like if I put that on 5 and render, you'll see it's a totally different effect. It's huge because this number is relative. If you don't put the pixel on it, it's relative. But I don't want any outset, so I'll just leave this on 0 pixels. Now the last thing we have to talk about is repeat, because the rest of these are just numbers that you can alter. This is the only one that really takes keywords that you might want to understand. Okay, here we are at the doc for border image repeat property. Now let's take a look at the values. We can stretch, repeat, round, or space the repeat effect. So these are the keywords that we can use in place. Where I have repeat, we can change that for stretch, round, or space. And don't worry, I'm going to lead you to all of these docs for all of these properties. In the links under the video, all of the properties we're working with will be linked so you can get to them. Now I'll actually have to change the graphics for you guys to see the effect of the repeat alteration. So I'll just put a little dot and I'll make it orange and I'll put it right there. And I'll also put one on the other side, right there. I'll bring them down a little bit. Actually, I'll just put them in the center as best I can. Now I'm going to save this, then go back to my code and render this. And now you can see I have little dots repeating through there. Now let's change this to stretch. Render it. Now the little dot gets stretched according to how tall this slice becomes. So repeat might be an effect that you want instead of stretch. But sometimes you might want to use stretch. Now all we have left is round keyword. So let's see what that renders. It's going to repeat them evenly. Then space. Okay, so that's really all of the options. Now remember your lengths, like the pixel lengths, these can be different units, like EM. You can have EM, or you don't even have to have a unit. It could just be a number, or percentages. These slices could be percentages. Alright, so now that we're done, we can remove the outline and enjoy our finished effects. Now mine isn't very attractive, and I designed mine in such a way so you guys could really see what was going on. But you can really make some remarkable looking boxes. Nice custom boxes that nobody else is going to have with your own custom graphics.